Welcome to the Lead Every Day show. Our mission is to see a world well led. And our strategy to get there? To empower leaders like you to lead every day. So let's get to work.
I had a conversation last night with one of my favorite people in the world. So easy to talk to, so fun. And I thought, why can't every conversation be like this? Unfortunately, they're not. Sometimes we have hard conversations. That's what we're talking about today. Welcome to the Lead Everyday Show. I'm Randy Gravitt.
I'm Mark Miller.
And we're going to talk today. This question came in. What do I do if I have to have hard conversations? I wish all the conversations could be nice and easy. Unfortunately, Mark, they're not.
They're not.
Some of them are really hard. And if you're in leadership, you've got people that are reporting to you, or go back to even what we talked about yesterday. We don't have clarity. Might not feel like an easy conversation to go to your boss and say, hey, you're not giving me the clarity I need. What do I need to do? Those conversations sometimes can be really hard. There's all kinds. Sometimes we have to fire people, let them go off of our team. Sometimes we got to a person's got to be held accountable for something.
Sure.
They think they did great work, and they're like, these hard conversations, they show up every day, really. Mm-hmm. And I think, I don't know about you, but nobody really ever taught me, like, how do you have a hard conversation? We're going to talk about it today. Hope you'll get an idea or two that'll help you as you think about navigating some of those difficult conversations. So let's jump in here. I hope this is going to be an easy conversation for us. But we're going to learn some stuff.
It'll be
here.
easy, but I want to piggyback on what you just said. I think there's nuance and even some different strategies and tactics that we may not go in today. If you're preparing for termination of an employee, that's one type of hard. And then you mentioned some other types of hard where you're going to talk to your boss about the fact you're not getting what you need. Again, I don't want to say that's hard, but that's a different type of hard. Mm-hmm. I think what we want to talk about today are there some principles and maybe even some tactics that cut across these, knowing that you could do a deep dive on different types.
Each one, that's right. That's
yes,
good.
I'd like to start with that disclaimer.
Yeah, that's good. So I'll start here with this. When I think about a hard conversation, I want to make sure that you said this earlier in the week, or last week, that we talk about. You talked about the importance of preparation. If I'm going to be in a really hard conversation, I need to make sure I have a conversation with myself on the front side that is very clearly like what needs to be communicated here. Where am I trying to go here? Let's
go back preparation.
Let's go back. Exactly. Let's go back to the car the other day. You said we were talking about preparation. It was not the goal of filling the car up with gas is not to have a full tank or even have a car. It's to get where we're trying to go. I think the goal is not to have a hard conversation. The goal is to get to a better place where we're trying to go. And I think if I'll spend time thinking through that and defining that, rather than just going in and like, hey, we need to have a conversation. I'm not even sure what I'm going to say.
Right.
And next thing you know, I'm off on some side road, or I'm beating around the bush for 30 minutes.
You don't say what needs to be said.
Or I try to,
you don't anticipate what they're going to say.
What they're going to say. All that stuff is a part of that preparation. I think that's a good place to start.
It is. So let me add to that. I think in the preparation mode, the first thing I would ask you to do if you're going to have a hard conversation, or you anticipate, you might be wrong, but you anticipate a difficult conversation, is check your heart. Mm-hmm. Check your heart. Ask yourself about, how are you feeling? Are you frustrated? Are you tired? Are you anxious? What is your mindset going into this conversation? And do you really have the other person's best interest at heart? Doesn't mean you're not going to have a hard conversation. Doesn't mean you may not ultimately terminate. But how do you have their best interest at heart and terminate? Well, I believe everybody can be successful at something. I do not believe everybody can be successful in every role, nor do I believe everyone can be successful in every organization, because there may just be things about these people that aren't going to work in your context. But that doesn't mean you need a bad heart. I would argue you need a really good heart to have those conversations well.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think sometimes we have to have hard conversations, and it's really good to ask ourselves, what do we need to say? But as much as what do I need to say, how do I need to say it? It's not just what am I trying to say, how do I need to say it? And what is it like to be on the other side of the table? Put yourself, a little bit what you're talking about, put yourself on the other side of the table. What's it like to hear what's being said to me? And if you can navigate some of those really emotions, but I mean, that's what makes a conversation hard. It's the emotional part of it. It's not necessarily even what's being said. Sometimes it's how it's being said, the inflection, the tone, the heart. I mean, it goes really back to what you're talking about. Is our heart right when we go into that conversation? Are we really trying to get to a better place, or are we just trying to make our point?
Right. So let me add again something else to the concept of preparation. Yeah, check your heart, but check your behaviors. We talked about this, I think, in the last episode or maybe 2 episodes back. When things aren't going well, the first place a leader should look is the mirror. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, doesn't mean you're not going to have a hard conversation, but ask yourself with as much integrity as you can muster, what did I do or fail to do that led to this moment? It may change your tone. It may change your language. It may actually change the objective of the conversation. It still may be challenging. It still may be difficult. It might just be hard. But if you realize you're the problem, it's a different conversation.
Yeah.
So check your heart and check your behaviors.
Well, so many times, I'll just say, so many times the people on my team that have struggled, it's been because of I didn't train them, I didn't resource them, I didn't hold them accountable, I wasn't clear. Some of the stuff we've talked about this week, that's on me. And sometimes if that person is struggling, maybe I do look myself in the mirror and say, is this something that I've actually allowed or caused
or enabled?
Enabled, whatever. And if I'm not careful, I might need to have the hard conversation with me, not with that other person. I mean, I probably still need to talk to them, but sometimes I do need to start by looking myself in the mirror. That's good.
Yeah. So let's go back to the question about any tips or advice. I think you got to provide real clarity. And clarity is this theme that kind of emerges in many of our episodes because I think it's a tremendous contribution that in many cases, the leader's the only one who can provide that level of clarity. So you're having a hard conversation. You need to be crystal clear on concerns and outcomes and next steps and performance metrics and whatever is needed. If there was ambiguity when you walked in the room, you need to try to eliminate as much of that as possible. And then just one footnote on that, depending on the nature of the conversation, I'm inclined to follow up in writing.
Yeah, that's good.
I had a conversation with someone. It's a little more of a coaching conversation. And I said, hey, I'll send this to you in writing. And they said, no, I got it completely. And I said, okay, do this for me. Write down the 3 things you think I was trying to communicate. And if you get what I've got on my list, I won't put anything in writing. Now, shame on me, my poor communication skills. They wrote down 3 things, and there were none of the things that I had tried to communicate. So I had to then go put it in writing. And I find that some people just process things much better if it's not just we talked about it, but I'll put it in writing. So depending on the severity and the nature of the conversation, I think putting it in writing is often a best practice.
Yeah, a couple more tactics here. I like that, but let's give them just a couple more things that they can do. I'd say don't put it off. If you need to have a hard conversation, sometimes we kick the can.
It doesn't get better with age.
It's not going to get better but by waiting. If I need to have it, I need to have it. And then the second thing I'd say, I think this is another tactical just reminder is don't assume it's going to be hard. It's a hard conversation. You've defined it. You've done the pre-work.
You've prepared in case it is.
You've prepared in case it is. You're maybe expecting it to be, but I think sometimes we build up in our mind this is going to be way harder than it is. And then let's say I need to talk to you about something. I come to you and I've just in my mind, it's just like, he's going to hate this. So many times let's say I'm giving you feedback, you're going, thank you so much. It actually ended up, it's not even, I'm the one who escalated it beforehand, and it really was, it ends up being great on the backside. So many times these hard conversations we think are going to be disastrous, even if we're having to fire somebody. I mean, I've had to let somebody go before, and a little soft language there is we're going to invite you to leave our team. And I think that's, and when I said it that way, this guy was like, okay, and he knew. It was obvious. I mean, you're not going to let somebody go unless it's obvious. But I think some of these things, just to in our minds, we build them up.
Let me give you another example.
And he was so relieved.
I was going to need to release a volunteer in a nonprofit organization.
It's hard to fire a volunteer, isn't it? You think, but
But prior to the meeting, I thought, you know what? I'm going to put in writing what we had agreed to that this volunteer was going to do that they had never done.
Right.
So in the meeting, I said, how do you think it's going? They said, well, I think it's going pretty good. And I said, well, let's take a look at what we agreed to 6 months ago. And I put it in writing. I'll never forget this. This woman looked at it and she said, "Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? I can do this." And I went, "Great." And she went on to become one of the best volunteers that I'd ever worked with.
Right.
So I thought it was going to be a train wreck. I thought I was going to fire a volunteer, which is really tricky.
Right.
And I had to provide an additional level of clarity.
Yeah.
Now,
and that goes back to you looking in the mirror going,
well, and in the
those 6
future,
months in between, you could have,
in the future, I will give volunteers expectations in writing.
Yeah.
And if they don't agree to it, let's decide that up front.
yeah, that's good.
And it turned her whole trajectory in another direction.
That's so great. That's so great. All right. I hope some of your conversations today are just easy peasy. I mean, that'd be great, but you're going to run into some hard conversations. I hope some of the things we've talked about today are going to help you to have those conversations to get you from where you are to that better place. Maybe unleash somebody who could just be an all-star, but they're right now, there's something you talk to them about. And if so, don't put that off. Go talk to them. Give them the gift of clarity in those relationships. I think it'll help not just you, but them. Your whole organization could be better if we'll learn how to have hard conversations. All right, join us tomorrow. We're going to have maybe a little easier conversation. We got a great question tomorrow, but maybe it'll be a little easier conversation than today. Remember, the best leaders lead every day.